All right, Derek. Willie.
Joe.
Hey.
Derek.
Thanks for having me on the show, Joe.
Yeah, right.
Willie.
Here we are.
Nice to
Cheers.
meet you.
Get one of those
For the
going.
first time. I've never known you guys before. Don't know why I said it that way.
Welcome to, good meeting people. Oh, there's my goddamn coaster.
There you go.
What do you guys
The
stealing
kitty
that from me?
coaster.
All right.
I wanted to, yeah.
Yeah. Well, so did you do that on purpose?
Yeah.
Or was it really your choice?
Well, I mean, I think it's both.
Oh.
I think it was determined, but I did do it on purpose as well.
Yeah. So that's obviously.
Well, that sounds like a good thing to talk about.
I know, right? There's our subject. No, so we kind of talked
Almost
about
as
that.
if it was planned or determined.
Hey,
we
oh
talked about
shit, we
it.
can go into
This is getting deeper.
Not monkey hole. What's called rabbit hole.
This is getting deeper to a predetermined depth.
I like the monkey hole. It sounds
That
pretty
sounds
bad,
squirrely, all right? This isn't like rabbit holes seem pretty neat and orderly. You're like, oh, it's just a rabbit hole. You're like, we're going down a monkey hole. You're like, what the
It's
fuck?
nothing but broken glass and razors everywhere.
Where the hell? Do I need a tetanus shot?
Craziness.
Well, you might, if it's your destiny.
Right. So, all right. So, to set the establishing subject here, before we lose our minds too much.
Should I introduce myself a little
Well,
bit?
yeah. Okay. So, introduce yourself to everybody. This is.
All right. Hi, my name is Derek Neumann. I'm not an alcoholic, but I do have a problem. I've known Joe. How long have I known you?
Oh shit! Did we actually ever meet, or were we just always there?
I think we were friend of friends for a long time.
Well, so it was through Rob Cannon. I know is how I met you. You were on leave the first time I met you.
Okay, yeah, it was
Yeah.
friend of a friend then, because
Yeah.
you were part of the whole Del Campo circuit, right?
Kind of, maybe, sort of. So I ended up hanging out with Rob a lot more after I graduated. Or
Right.
no, it was my senior year when all my friends dropped out because they were on drugs.
Happens.
Yay.
Happens.
Oh boy.
So yeah, no, that's totally. So then I met you probably around the same time, which you were on leave. I don't know. Was that your second year?
That would have been.
Rob was already
Yeah, I would have
graduated,
been
I
from
think.
boot camp. I think I would have been a boot ass motherfucker. And so yeah, that would have been my first year.
You
Well,
were
not even a
wearing-
year. Not even a year.
Not even a year. Okay, so
Yeah.
that was months in. All right.
Yeah. Was it
Yeah.
around Christmas time? Because if it wasn't, then it would have been boot camp.
Fuck if I know, man.
I know that whole thing, like that whole period of my life is sort of
Kind of a blur.
Yeah. A lot of this.
Right. Yeah.
Punctuated by very clear moments.
Well, what do they say? It's that there's a few jobs like airline pilot. They say is hours of absolute boredom, punctuated by moments of sheer terror.
I can see that.
Yeah, so that kind of applies, right?
Yeah. It's
Yeah, you know,
pretty much more
something
or
of the
less.
sort. Yeah.
So yeah, that's and I think I only met you in the last.
Oh, Willie here.
Yeah, like I may have met you once before I disappeared off the face of the earth and went to Nevada.
Yeah, I think I remember. Yeah, there was like a party or something, and yeah, you were like I just knew you were like Tim's brother and stuff like that. We hit it off, but
Got married. You didn't know about that, did you?
No, I didn't know about that.
Yeah, I'm happily married
Wow,
for 3
Joe.
years now.
Where'd you ship her from?
What?
What country is she from?
I married Willie.
yeah,
Oh, you two married.
we're
pig.
like it's funny because we're like brothers. You'd think you'd know, but yeah.
Well, these are the
Kept it
secrets
from
you
me.
have to keep.
Clearly.
I wouldn't want to marry me either, Willie. I wouldn't want anyone to know about
That's
it.
the thing. He kept it secret because he was ashamed of you.
Yeah.
It's a star-crossed romance that it's gonna be our next show's topic.
Yeah, it's like Romeo and Juliet, but we're not going to die at the end. Well, I mean, we'll all die.
Yeah. Eventually.
But not like, so young.
Also,
We're
it's
way
like-
past the 16,
It's
14-year-old
like two
dynamic.
Romeos too.
I don't know.
Oh,
They're really young.
Yeah, that's right. They were young. As
It was a
shit.
very different time.
Yeah, you made it to like 50, and they were like, "When you gonna croak?"
Well, no,
You
50 was
geez.
old as fuck.
Yeah.
Like undead.
Yeah.
Though okay, well that's a different thing. But I read that somewhere that if you're wealthy enough, even people in the medieval era, if their genetics lended themselves to it, it was like you can make it to your 80s.
Damn.
Yeah, it
I
happened.
mean, they're not very often.
It was
but
super-
would
Right.
happen.
Yeah, it
well,
was
and
really
back
uncommon.
then too, your 80s weren't nearly as
Yeah.
pretty.
No.
Yeah.
No, I imagine you're pretty burnt out by your 80s. If
By your
40 was
80s.
like your normal, I mean, like I don't know what the average lifespan in the medieval era was, but at 40 it was like sounded like it was old.
Although I bet you got a killer immune system by the time you hit 80.
Oh no,
Yeah. I mean, you're hanging on by a thread, but
your bones are dust.
You're
You're basically a gelatin blob floating around.
Yeah,
But as long as your brain worked.
it probably didn't.
yeah, it's amazing the shit that you'll ingest when you don't know what germs are.
Right. Oh god.
They're like, that looks filthy. Stay away from that.
Or
And
shit sandwich.
they'll just be like they'll be drinking clear water that's just got like tons of bacteria in it.
Yeah, but that was normal back
They're
then.
like, that looks
yeah.
good.
It was just hydrated dog urine. Might be more sterile. But
Ugh.
yeah, so that's how we know each other.
Yeah, oh yeah,
Um,
bringing it back. So that's when we met.
Yeah. You never worked on any of our film projects, did you?
No, I I saw them. We should plug those.
Yeah, no, those are
God,
good.
what's Rob's YouTube channel?
I think it's like either Rob Areno.
Oh
Yeah,
wait,
Robert,
yeah, I
yeah.
think so. And then that produced Monkey Yell.
Monkey,
which was
the cult classic of
That was a
Campo.
cool dude. I'm responsible probably for at least some people knowing about that.
That was
abomination.
prototype
Yeah.
mainstream memes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was.
that probably makes Rob double hated, honestly.
If you take it back to that, like,
Yeah.
well, he was the inception of memes.
Yeah,
Well,
I told
mainstream memes.
Mainstream
There were
memes.
memes back then, but they weren't mainstream.
Yeah, that was like
Do you
the
know what
old
I mean?
programmer memes were
Yeah,
all like
like-
way
they were like
underground.
proto memes. They were like if it's before 2011, I almost feel like you have to call them proto
They
memes.
didn't really have a metabolism, but
Proto memes.
All right.
So,
So,
yeah.
speaking,
But anyways, so we talked is, we just try to get some framework to these things
Mhm.
because otherwise it goes we start talking about monkey tunnels.
Monkey
All
holes.
the monkey
They're
holes.
called monkey holes, Joe. You gotta
monkey-
keep up with the
it
verbs.
gets more and more dirty.
Vocabulary.
Monkey tunnel doesn't sound that bad, right?
Monkey tunnel doesn't sound that bad.
Monkey tunnel.
Sounds like some of the most crudest, like someone just found out human beings, are inside like the primate family, and like, and that's a word they come up. 'Cause you're 7. That's
Oh,
what
we're
it
down.
sounds like.
We're lost in the monkey hole now.
Yeah, monkey hole.
Well-
We gone down it.
I came up from Carson City, Nevada.
Mm, yeah.
What'd you come here to talk about?
I came here to talk about fate
Okay.
and choice,
Alright.
and if there is any like difference between the two.
Is that what you're gonna choose to talk about, huh?
Yeah. Well,
Did you
it's
choose
more
to
or
talk?
less.
So
Yes, I did
Yeah,
choose,
you
but
chose
my
that.
choices are predetermined. That's I'll come out right out and say it.
Okay.
I'll come out of the closet and say I'm a determinist.
Oh.
Alright.
I'm a hard
So
determinist.
what? Okay, so break it down for me, because as I'm
I get that drunk.
Free will
Colin,
versus
this
the
is what I get for not
determinalist.
going to the gym before one of these and just sitting there and drinking.
You're getting off. You don't have control of your
Flopping all
limbs. You're
over
like
the
an
place here.
octopi or octopus.
Okay.
Gelatinous blob, actually.
Okay.
Within the
I was gonna say
1800s.
most people, and I don't know this honestly because I didn't do. This would have been some good data to look up before the
Right.
show. Would have been okay. I'm sure someone's done a poll about what are your opinions on free will? Do you have it? I know there's some sort of like compatibilist belief out there where it's like there's free will, but predetermined. I guess you could akin it to like a video game with a semi-linear path, where
Yeah.
you must go down this hall, but the route you take to the end or the different
Everything's
ends.
going to lead you back to even if you try to stray away.
Yeah,
it's
or
still
maybe
gonna-
there's an ABDC,
Well, it's almost even kind of like.
ABDC end,
right.
alphabetical.
What
order.
about Grand Theft Auto, where it's like you can explore around San Andreas, but you can only explore around San Andreas?
I always choose the Death Wish ending. 'Cause I don't want to kill either of them. I really like Michael. I worked really hard to help repair his relationship with his wife. That's how entranced I was in the story.
Right.
But yeah,
Yeah.
basically, I think a lot of people do believe in some kind of free will.
I would say, especially in America, for
Yeah.
cultural reasons,
No, that's
land of the
true.
free. They don't call us land of the free for nothing, and so
Right.
And I think some of that has to do with like the religious heritage going back, where free will is kind of a big thing in like the Abrahamic religions, where it's sort of. That's a different topic because you can kind of go into, if you want to get into the nitty gritty of some of like the passages, especially in like the Quran, when it comes to the Quran, when it comes to like free will and stuff like that, or like what God wills you to do. But for the most part, your Abrahamic, your Western religions are going to be free will based, where you might get more destiny based stuff. That's not to say that there wasn't like predetermined, like Calvinism was predetermined.
yeah, I was about to say that's a
Yeah,
Protestant thing. I know
there was-
Calvinists
yeah.
they believe in like what
Yeah,
predestination,
you
everyone's
you
fate.
go to hell or heaven, and it's predetermined. And
But even that seemed kind of screwy with me.
I hear
What-
Rob yelling. but
What's Rob yelling about?
original sin.
There we go,
Original
okay.
sin.
Okay, yeah, we'll get to that. That's a good one.
But with
Actually, that is a
with
good
the Calvinists though, because it's kind of related to what we're talking about, they believe in like or predestination, meaning like everyone who's born, it's like prescribed before they're born whether or not they're going to go to heaven, right?
Mhm.
But you tell like the question is like, well, who's on the get in list? Who's on like the guest list for heaven, and who's on the go to hell list? And it's like you tell by their acts, like right? Isn't that some like but that almost makes free will sound like it's kind of implied free will, or in the
Well,
sense, or it's implied.
It's just about as much free will as those like toy cars that you'd pull back
Yeah.
on like the linoleum,
Yeah.
and that would wind up and you let them go. About that much free will.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's a portion where the hand of the divine is not on you.
But it's all
yeah,
a direct
you're all lined
reaction
up.
of
Yeah, and but it comes down to, you're right. They tell you know if you're going to heaven by your acts.
And so they would encourage you to go to church, because then you'll know, like, if you're going to church, that means you know you're on the accepted list. But then it makes it sound like getting into heaven is like it's contingent on whether or not you go to church. I guess what I'm trying to say is that whole like predestination thing doesn't quite make sense to me. That's just a personal misunderstanding, probably.
No, yeah. I mean, like, honestly, that the way that they approached it would be almost, in my opinion, enlightened. Where it's, because I'd say at an individual level, it doesn't. Believing in predeterminism, even though I think it's correct, isn't necessary and could be even harmful to an extent if you used it as a crutch. Like, I don't think it's an inherently harmful belief.
But here's the problem: is what's different. The way that I see it all, it's not that it's a religious thing where there's some sort of divine figure, but it's literally. I take it on much more of a scientific level, where there's only so many, and the theory being like many universes, multiple, this and that. There's so many ways that all of the different atoms and the quarks and the protons and neutrons in this galaxy, the entire universe that we know, can be arranged. And so therefore, you would think essentially that, and then the greater idea is that there's the Big Bang, right? All this matter starts expanding, and it starts formulating different things and going into different shapes and forms and this and that, creating planets with people on the planets. This is just one of those timelines, and it's gonna play out this way. Now the next one, everything will be all the same, but one little proton's gonna move over and be in a different place. Then it's gonna do the big collapse, right? Because that's the end. It expands and it collapses. Then it keeps. I figure that's what it keeps doing. Who knows? I don't know. I haven't really figured out what happens.
Maybe this is the only burst.
Maybe this is the only burst. Yeah. But that being it, is that they're only gonna interact in one way, and it's quite literally just everything's in a reaction. It's not because some divine thing says this person's gonna feel this way. It's that there's a chain reaction set forth where an atom's gonna fall. It's kind of like a big giant Rube Goldberg machine. Right?
Yeah.
Where the marble rolls and hits the other marble, and that makes that marble go. And it's like there was nothing else that could have possibly happened other than that. And so it just so happens that these atoms all formed me, and the chain reaction, there's no possible other action than for those to do this.
What's that machine called again?
The Rube Goldberg machine.
And how does it work?
So those are the big giant ones. Like, you seen that OK Go music video?
Oh, yeah.
Where the glass falls down, fills up a bucket that changes the teeter-totter, and then it tips over some domino, and so on and so forth. Those are giant Rube Goldberg machines.
An over-complex machine to do a simple task.
Yeah.
But no, that's my stance now. The only reason I bring up the divine element, or like the religious side of it, is my original struggle with free will.
Okay.
Was a religious one. And my stance now is I'm a hard predeterministic materialist atheist.
Right.
It's all must happen. There's only one possibility, one configuration. But back in the day, I kind of struggled with the, the all-powerful creator kind of thing. With, okay, so you've got free will, but there's an all-powerful creator, which means nothing can happen unless, it happens with the consent of this being.
Yeah.
Which originally informed my my beliefs on God, where I believe God was an amoral being, where good and evil were more human things. Or actually, no, I didn't believe that. I believed that good and evil were universal forces at the time, but I believed God was outside of those.
Okay.
And I guess that would kind of make sense if you believed in a transient God that's outside of the universe. Then things like good and evil would also not apply. I know a lot of systems have God being one or the other, but for me at the time, it was God's an amoral being. You ever see a movie called Time Bandits?
No, I haven't.
You haven't?
What's it about?
Oh, it's really good. It's got some of the Monty Python guys. Sean Connery plays Agamemnon. It's a bunch of midgets that used to work for God, and they got fired for making a crap tree.
Right.
So they stole his map. They stole God's map that has all the holes in time and where they're mapped, so how you can get around the universe through time. And the idea behind it was they only had 7 days to make the universe, so it's kind of crappy, and there's holes in time, and they're stealing gold and stuff. So it kind of tells you about the world outside is apparently mineral. Metal.
It matters to a certain degree. Yeah.
And God is actually chasing them through time. And you find out at the end that he's chasing them because he's this giant when he's chasing him, he's this giant head that's really scary and has this like scary music. And he's telling him
Rick and Morty where there's the giant head.
You know, it's,
Show me what you got.
he's screaming about like you need to return the map. It will bring you great danger. And but he lets them get away. And the idea is they are supposed to. Their greed drives them to attempt to steal the most fabulous object in the world. The most fabulous object in the world was played by David Warner, and it was evil. It was God's greatest creation.
The evil is the most.
Is the most valuable object in the world in Time Bandits.
It would be the most fabulous object.
Yeah,
right?
and it was the idea behind it was that
Lustful.
it was.
I guess would be a better word for it. Yeah.
It was his greatest creation, and it was essential to free will.
Yeah.
And I kind of took that stance where God in that is actually an amoral being. He is a businessman. Is how he finally manifests himself at the end.
Okay.
Is he's kind of a stuffy English businessman, and he is amoral. He's
Yeah.
not good. He's not evil. He manages the universe.
Yeah.
And that's how I used to think
So
of
he
God.
just manages it. It's
Yeah.
not that he created it. Well, I mean, he sort of produced it, if you will. You know,
but it's ultimately it's more of a cold indifference to the universe where he's just operating it.
all right.
So-
Honestly, you could get that from the Necronomicon. You know, you ever read that one?
Yeah, that's what's his name, right?
Yeah, no,
Love-
it's the fictional Necronomicon from Lovecraft.
Yeah,
The
Lovecraft.
guy
Lovecraft,
compiled
that's
a
it, yeah.
version of the Necronomicon, and
Yeah.
it was kind of nice. And Azathoth was the god that actually makes creation,
Yeah.
but he's not aware of it, and he doesn't care about it.
Huh.
Yeah, but he doesn't know he's doing it either. But because of him, the universe exists, and that was my belief for a long time.
Is that kind of like the clock? Is that kind of like the clockmaker theory, where like God created it's equating him to like a clockmaker who he creates a clock, he creates the mechanisms that can keep it running, and then he just kind of like lets it go? Or is this actually having him play like a maintaining role?
In
Like,
the way that they describe it, and the metaphor is he's playing a flute. Because he plays the flute, the universe exists. One day, his brother's going to come and take the flute from him, and
Right.
that'll end everything.
Asshole.
Yeah. Yeah, but the idea behind it was originally I had a compatibilist sort of view where it was like, okay, yeah, you make choices, but your choices are limited
Right.
based off of your ultimate destiny. And, you know, I really did believe kind of like the choose your own adventure style book to reality.
Well, it's because that one there's still different endings, but this one it's almost like a video game, like you're saying. Especially that weird middle ground of video games where it made you feel like you had different choices, but you actually didn't.
Yeah, your
You know?
choices are limited. Your
Yeah.
endings are limited, and that's how I used to think. And I'm not really sure when the transition began, because at a certain point, I kind of, I made my God so reasonable that he became irrelevant.
Right.
And so the step between deism and atheism it's a really short distance to walk.
Well, so but here's I guess when it comes down to the what's it really matter kind of thing. So let's say you go with that theory where your destiny is set.
Mhm.
Your choices are limited, but no matter what, you're going to end up wherever you're going to end up. So therefore, I would say, why the hell should I do anything at all with my life? Why can't I just lay in bed all day, and eventually I'll end up where I was going to end up, right?
Well, that's an interesting argument.
Mhm.
I've heard that one before. Basically, the act of, at an individual level, believing in free will, or rather, you don't have to believe in free will.
Right.
That's got a lot of baggage. But you
Yeah,
can believe in choice.
Right.
Because choice is something, I'm a predeterminist, but I do believe in choice. And I guess I should clarify that a little bit, because it sounds contradictory. I believe in, the mechanisms of choice. Like,
Okay.
You feel like you're making a choice. Certain things are being evaluated in your head. You go through the acts of doing it.
Yeah.
But I would believe that every situation before this moment shaped who you were. Do you know what I mean? And so you could only do a certain thing. When it comes to why, if everything is predetermined, why should you do anything, I could throw that back and just say, I mean, this isn't a really good answer, but it's an okay answer. Well, if everything is free will, then why should you do anything?
Right.
Why
Well,
should you do anything at all?
And here's the thing is that even though yay or nay towards whatever is predetermined, the fact is that we live in this world where there are consequences for our actions. Nonetheless, doesn't matter what it is, what you do what you get depends on what you do.
Mhm.
So therefore, it may be predetermined, but part of the predetermined is that you're going to think, I have to do this. That's
yeah.
part of your whole that's part of the idea that, well, I could just lay down and just, curl up in the fetal position for the rest of my
I
life. But
suppose
that's
so.
not going to get you very far.
Yeah.
And that's part of the whole thing is that whatever is predetermined, or, the atoms in my head that are flying around are going, nah, they're pinging back and forth, and that's not what was actually lined up.
We're not the descendants of the beings who chose to do nothing.
Right.
Those guys died.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. They
we really are the product of what came before us.
Because that's a Darwinian theory almost. If you were to go into that.
Well, yeah, no, it is. It is.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about because people talk about like for example, a good one is road rage.
Right.
You know, and I experienced this too, where you kind of assume more agency than necessary, and that would be a good survival instinct if you assume that everything was out to get you.
Yeah.
Because if you normally in a survival situation, if you assume something's out to get you and nothing's out to get you, then you'll probably still make the right decisions to stay alive.
Yeah.
Versus the beings that thought nothing was out to get them, and then they got killed.
Right.
You know, when it was time, when it was time to recognize agency, and they didn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so now we're all the descendants of people who see, agency, even when
Who
there's
didn't
no
follow, yeah.
agency. You know.
Well, so what's funny is a similar theory. I heard this about road rage. Because you know how, like, normally calm people, super cool. Pat's a great example. Pat can, like, just be super calm through some crazy shit. But you put him in a car, and he fucking goes ape shit. He's ready to yell, and, like, this and that. And so the theory behind some people being, like, on road rage tactic, it's that because you're in a little steel cage flying down the road at 60 miles an hour, that's not natural for humans, right?
No.
You're in, like, your brain's in high speed mode, or at least a lot of people are. Some people are just better adapted to it, they can handle it. It's a calm thing. But some people are like, that's a tense moment, it's a high stress environment. So you take that person that's at this experience level, or the stress level, like an 8 or 9 or a 7 or something like that, and something happens out of the ordinary, and they freak the fuck out. Right? That's road rage.
I would agree that's definitely a contributing factor.
Yeah.
I guess, honestly, I think that would be a larger factor than what I described, where it's just assigning agency, where stupidity would have been a good example, but you assume malice.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? And it's more natural to assume malice. I think you're right that most road rage is probably caused by that.
Like a stress-induced
You're
thing,
already, like, in an unnatural position, so you're stressed.
Yeah.
But I would also say that, some of it comes from the fact that you assume the intentions of other people.
Right.
Because you can't see their body language. You can't see anything about
them. Cars are weird
them.
like that, though, because we'll assume we're way too polite, or we're assholes in cars. There's no in-between, it seems.
Yeah, you choose the most extreme.
Yeah.
Because, ultimately you're making up all that information,
Yeah, it's all because you don't see the facial... Well,
Yeah.
sometimes you do, but,
Sometimes they let you know.
Yeah, sometimes
they do.
There's that symbol right there, yeah.
Hey, Willie, do you mind pouring me
we'll just get
some rocks in there?
You can double that up.
Some crack
Actually, I can do
rocks.
my own here. I don't need to
Yeah, no,
make
I know
you
what you're
both
saying.
But,
Maybe road rage was actually a bad example, but you know what I'm saying.
Okay, so actually, this is kind of relevant to the whole free will discussion so the determinist discussion kind of talks about like how people, when they make decisions, it's heavily influenced by. Oh, it's all over here.
Oh, you got all this shit.
Here.
Right.
And I'm about to go
That's
on
a
a
large
bit.
battle.
But like, one thing. So one way that because it's
Calm
all.
down, Derek. Right, we're gonna cut you off here.
When I'm
We
laying on the
established
table.
this is all right before we started this show. I was like, hey, do we need it?
It's only fate, Joe.
It's only fit right. There's not free will here, huh?
Mm-hmm.
My atoms were assigned to do this.
Sorry, Willie. You.
Continue.
Yeah, I was okay. No, but like the whole determinist bit, it's kind of talking about how people if they're making decisions, their options are limited, and one of the things that limits them even is their mental states, because their mental state is you can call it like a physical thing. So like. Let's see if I can like phrase this properly. It's kind of complicated shit, but basically, if you are angry, that's not necessarily free will. Like you didn't choose to be angry. That's a mental state that could be caused by, well, let's just say you're in traffic. You're in traffic. You're on the freeway. There's a lot of cars driving, and on top of that, you need to pick up your kid. In 10 minutes, you need to be there to pick him up, and it's going to be at least like 20, 25 minutes. So our kid. That's right. My bad,
Let's not
sweetie.
forget. God damn, this
So
fucking
that-
monkey hole, man.
That contributes. So that contributes to like an angry mental state, and that is going to totally control. That controls like your perceptions. It's like it determines how you. I'm definitely not going to drink this. I need some Coca-Cola. But anyways, like that angry state is a limiting of options too, and so. I think.
Sorry.
Apparently, I mixed up a little. Oh. Woo!
Okay, that's good.
I'll water those down in a
Continue
second
on.
here.
But Yeah, that's just kind of like me tying in the whole road rage thing to the free will discussion. Is when people are angry, I mean, like their options are. That's another thing that
Right.
that limits their options.
Yeah, their emotional state.
Their
That's
emotional
pretty true,
state. That's
yeah.
something that people need to be more conscious of in general. Is the extent to which their emotional state is limiting their options. Like,
That's
so
an interesting. So that's I mean, because that's almost taking an indifferent standpoint. Not so much the free will, but understanding what's going on in your own mind, kind of thing.
Hand me
Yeah.
the Coke bottle.
But understanding what's going on in your mind, right? It's because understanding your own standpoint on where you are, that's huge in order to judge and react, or to judge what you're going to do, how your reaction is going to be to this.
And also to
environment.
judge other people when they make their actions.
Yeah.
And I know this is going to kind of derail things, but, even if you did believe in free will, I think we can divorce free will from the concept of choice.
Yeah.
I
Do
definitely.
you know what I'm
So
saying?
what is free will? I think
Well,
that's
this is the crux of it.
Yeah.
When you get down to it, so what is
'cause
free will?
What does it really mean
Like,
if
when-
I'm still sitting here and I'm
I-
still
I
making a
wanna-
choice? Like, you can't tell me what to do. Am I going to drink this or am I going to not?
Well, we kind of need someone
you know?
who says they believe in free will to be like, well,
Well,
what
I
do you
can,
describe as free will? And so
I got a
we'll-
straw man for you.
All right, let's put it.
I had a classmate. This is an actual person. I'll
Yeah,
try
yeah,
and get
go-
their argument
yeah.
as close as I can, even though
okay.
there's not much of an argument there.
Yeah.
Because basically what I was doing is, I think that you may have heard of this already. It was this argument between Universe A and Universe B, and both universes are identical
Okay.
up to a certain point, when John Doe must make a decision between choice 1 and choice 2. Now, if you believe in free will, then there's a possibility in Universe A he'll choose 1, and Universe B he'll choose 2. However, if you think, most people would choose, they choose the same because by definition the universes are identical.
Everything, the input. See, that's my theory.
I'll give
though,
you
is that,
the cop out and say it's identical up to this point.
Okay.
Because to me that's the same thing as saying they're identical. Because if
Yeah.
they're absolutely identical, I assume that there's such a thing as something, that transcends the universe that comes in from the outside that would change
Okay.
it. But barring that,
right.
if you believe that John Doe would make a different decision in an identical universe, then you would believe in free will. Most people who say they believe in free will don't believe they'd make a different decision because they
Right.
actually don't believe in free will, but they this is a judgment call on a lot of people I've never met, but I assume that it's more comforting to assume that you make your own choices, which you do, but your choices are also made for you eons before you're born.
Right. Well.
Okay, I mean that's my assertion,
So
but
I mean, so here's the thing: is I'll interject or do the devil's advocate thing
Yeah.
here, because I could throw out the whole argument where, of course, everything's predetermined eons ahead of time because just the physical nature of the universe.
dominoes.
Yeah, domino effect. It's a
Yeah.
big giant domino thing. But the fact is that every day, why in the hell would you ever need any sort of motivation? Why would you do this? Why is there the whole concept of choice if that's the case? And so for me, it's a healthy thing because this is what encourages you to make choices that are good.
I'd agree on a mechanical level, that's true, but I
Yeah.
don't think the baggage of free will is necessary, and mostly because the way I'd attack something like that is I'd attempt to disarm it by saying, well, yeah, if you have free will, then what is the point of doing anything either?
Yeah.
There's the answers.
But see, I strongly like for me, it's like hell yeah, there's a reason to do things. Like of course, because there's this extreme, what you put out in life is what you get back.
Agreed.
100%, and that's something I strongly, whether it's just doing homework, going to school, trying to work at, working hard towards jobs or relationships, whatever it is. If you put out good things in this weird karmic way, no fucking science behind it at all,
Yeah.
but in this weird karmic way, doing good things makes good things come back.
So what if someone doesn't?
Generally.
What if someone doesn't believe that though?
Well, I mean, you
That-
could.
Do,
you
do
could-
they?
yeah.
All right. Do they have like a limited, ceiling? Do they have a lower ceiling of what they can accomplish? Because that's a pessimist. If you do not believe
Okay.
that anything is possible, right? Because that's kind of what you're saying.
I
or,
would-
you're kind of saying
I
that.
would
Yeah,
argue that
basically
point of view is
saying that-
correct.
yeah.
Yeah.
However, I'd argue the smoke and mirrors I'd start pulling for motivational purposes would be that you don't know what your upward limit is because you have a limited human intellect. You don't see all angles. It's not even
Yeah.
the intellect that's wanting.
We have
Even
limited
though
perceptions.
You're not smart enough to do this,
Yeah.
but it's a perception thing. You'll never collect the correct amount of data, so
Yeah.
you can't know for sure. So the strategies of a free-willed individual are applicable to even a person with total destiny. They're the same strategies, the same
Okay.
answers to life. you don't know what your destiny is. You don't know all ends, so you attempt to use the most successful strategies. And in an ultimate sense, yes, it's all predetermined. At an individual level, you don't have to worry about it, and you might as well operate at free will. But like I said, free will comes with a lot of baggage. It comes with a lot of the baggage when it comes to understanding stuff, you know.
Yeah.
Now this is, I suppose I'll get into my creepy serial killer aspect of this. Because I was talking...
Don't get too creepy here.
All right, this goes back into...
Coke over there, Willie?
I remember we
This
didn't
would be
talk
the
about this
moment
part
here.
on the air. When it came to dealing with emotional
Serial
issues,
killer
thank you.
aspect over here. Got you.
When it came to heavy emotional stuff, you know, and mostly when it came to dealing with other people, a lot of people don't like the idea of objectifying other people. You're reducing them to objects, and I found that this is just me, but I found not only am I not able to do that really, but attempting to do that was a successful strategy when it came to coping with people. And it made it easier to forgive them when you akin someone more to an avalanche than an agent. And the reason is when you start to believe that people do what they do because they have to, because there was no other choice, it becomes easier to forgive them, and actually easier to forgive yourself.
Right.
Now, you know, at an individual, when it comes time to make choices, it's important to take responsibility.
Yeah.
But I would argue the idea, the
That was
feeling
my
of
concern.
taking responsibility, the feeling of making choices, these are all mechanical things that are part of your predetermined destiny. This is what we do. Just like a car doesn't decide where to drive itself. It's not a perfect metaphor.
Yeah, but I mean, the other day I tried to start up my car and it didn't even start up, so I wasn't going anywhere. I didn't determine that, my car did. Or
Well,
should
no,
I say
no,
the
no,
faulty
no.
battery? The
Yeah,
faulty
the
battery in my car
And once
determined
again,
that.
Once again, who determined that though? Had you gone through and checked your battery, it wouldn't be. Once again, this goes back to my job.
Yeah.
Our job is to make sure these things don't happen. Like with planes, you check the battery very often. The cylinders, all these different things you check, so that way you essentially take a lot of the guesswork out of things. Like every day we just.
Are you alright?
Rob's having a hard time. Oh, I didn't close the blinds, so Odin's over there whining at Rob. That's what's going on. Well, Rob, so you can hear us, I'm gonna tell you.
Rob, wherever you are.
If you go to wherever you are, if
Rob.
you go to the kitchen and close the blinds so Odin can't see you, he'll forget you're there.
Make sure to put the shoe polish on your face.
Got weird.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think we're doing a different thing.
No,
but
we're not doing that. No.
Okay.
Odin's a good dog. We don't have to shoe polish him.
we don't have to do blackface.
No, we don't have to blackface with my dog. He's a white dog, though. Anyways,
We'd have to do blackface.
so what was I getting at? Is that ultimately this whole dead battery in your car,
Yeah. It's my fault.
it's you that actually chose that, whether you knew it or not.
What did I choose, though?
You chose to neglect your vehicle.
I didn't, though. It's like, this is a problem that we've been having.
Or you left your damn lights on.
I didn't leave my damn lights on. This is like... This is not my fault.
about
It's
your-
not my fault.
The
Your
point I'm
headlights.
making
Not
is
your damn
that-
lights. Your headlights?
Is at an individual level.
Yeah.
Behaving as if you believed that your choices... Okay, here's the thing, as I say. Believing as if your choices mattered implies that I think your choices don't matter. Even
Right.
in a predeterministic model, your choices matter. They're just made before you.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I think that people get really wrapped up with. Okay, the classmate that I had in English class, because we had a section in this English class that had to do with free will. And I was arguing with her that, you know, if your routine was you walk down this one particular street and you always make a right because you have a destination in mind, you have a goal. You know, and as long as you're not interrupted in this goal, you're going to carry out the goal. Because you've always carried out the goal. Because it's a goal that you always want to carry out. I don't know, it doesn't matter what it is, why you're traveling down the street, but the point is you always do the same thing because you're trying to accomplish a certain thing.
Right.
And I'm like, if you believe in free will, then you believe that at some point you'll do a backflip and take left instead.
Because you can.
Yeah, because
Right.
technically you can. And like, how do you know you have free will if you don't exercise it? And then really what it comes down to is like free will is like, how would you know you had free will?
So, but then there's the counter to that is what if part of this predetermined plan is they're like, oh, you're going to do a backflip on July 12th.
Well, I would agree. I'd
And
really
turn
that
left,
you have
you
your elaborate seizure that includes a backflip. And but that's the thing is she say like, yeah, well, yeah, I could, but I won't. I'm like, but yeah, because you have a reason to do what you do, and the reason is determined by factors before you made that.
So
and
I guess here's an interesting one. Is that's kind of the difference, if you will, and it's taking it in a different tangent, but the idea that what is the whole human experience, right? because we sit there and like obviously robots could do damn near everything that we do better, except what?
People stuff,
Create art.
creativity.
You know, stupid things. Why do we go?
Well-
why do a very good majority of them? Yeah, even Robert
I feel like
Some Roberts some Roberts have been
Some
programmed
Roberts.
to make. There's a Robert out there, I think.
he's not he's programmed to make art.
Like, art,
though.
yeah.
well, and robots
Yeah.
can't do
Like a
things.
faggot.
So creative things. But what about a teacher? Do you think robots could? Do you think
can
robots?
Make him leave. Go ahead.
Do you think robots could be teachers?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, how?
Have you ever used Mavis typing tutor before? Is it
Okay.
Mavis or
I think
Beavis?
That's
no, Mavis.
Well, okay.
I
Well,
think
what
it's
kind of-
not inconceivable that a robot could be made that
Probably a better
performs. Yeah,
'Cause
actually.
it could sense inputs that humans don't.
And
or
without
some humans
without the
don't.
same while still being based out of a really complex version of computing. Do you know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like I'm not even talking about like an actual because I'll throw this out here just to muddy the waters even more.
Hey.
Mass Effect, the video game.
Yes.
They got
There
something
we go,
I really
finally.
liked,
Okay.
and it was the difference between VI and AI. Because we call it AI,
right.
but most of the things that are AI, they're not actually artificial intelligence. They're virtual intelligence.
Okay,
They
yeah,
pretend
that's-
to be It looks like from the outside that if you didn't know any
Yeah.
better, this machine can think.
No,
it
it's
can't.
just it's a
It's
lookup
just so
chart.
complex.
Yeah, well, it's a
that it
lookup
looks like
chart.
it's
It just
thinking.
simply takes,
Okay.
or what's it called, like a thought tree or speech
Yeah.
tree, where it's like, okay, he said this.
What's an example of that in real life? What's an example of virtual intelligence in real life? What about
well-
Siri? Where does Siri fall? Is she artificial intelligence?
She's virtual intelligence.
Virtual
Okay.
intelligence,
Or,
yeah.
Do we have an
because that's
example of AI in real life?
No. And
Not
that
yet?
comes down to I really wish I could remember the term
Yeah,
for it, but
that's-
it's the difference between how a computer thinks, in quotation marks for
Right.
people who's playing
Well,
video
no,
games
so
and not
actually,
actually watching the
there,
stream.
There
Yeah.
are
Oh.
you're wrong. There is what they consider artificial intelligence is, for example, the robots that learn.
No, they use that term. I'd say it's a wrong term.
Yeah,
I know
okay.
I'm making the water muddy.
No, just keep
but
going, yeah.
Muddy
I
that
think it's a
water.
wrong term.
Let's
I think
go
it's
down the
virtual
monkey hole,
intelligence.
baby.
It's an intelligence.
Monkey tunnel.
Way down the monkey tunnel. Past the hymen. This is where we are. Basically, I think that most of the stuff is virtual intelligence. It's just it
Yeah.
appears to think, it appears to learn. I mean, and depending on how you define learn, fine, it learns. Do you know what I mean? Like
that's,
it's a
that's
learning
what I would
being.
define as intelligent, because if it can
But
learn, it's
there's
intelligent.
a way that computers think, and there's a way that we think. And I can't remember what the terms are, but they are different.
Yes. That's. Hang on.
Well, what about the absence of emotions? Does it have anything to do with it?
Oh, it
'Cause-
does, but like there would still
No,
be.
because intelligence
you could-
doesn't actually correlate with emotion.
You could still be You could still be intelligent without. You could still have intelligence without like the emotions as we understand them.
Yeah.
all right, now I'm going to try to muddy the waters. Isn't there a thing called emotional intelligence, though? It's the ability to which you understand emotions and
Yes.
therefore have empathy towards
you
other
do not
human
have
beings.
to have emotion to have emotional intelligence.
Yeah, you could.
Let's
A
take
sociopath.
Yeah, sociopaths. That's what we're doing.
Sociopaths
Yeah,
can
not
have it.
psychopaths.
Granted, they do have emotions, but they have limited, different emotions than we do. But they
it's
can
a much
understand how
more
to manipulate
muted version,
you.
but
Yeah.
they can
Okay.
sense. Those can be extremely emotionally intelligent people,
Maybe I should-
and that's why they do succeed very often.
Maybe
It's
I
because
shouldn't,
they
talk while you're talking.
Right, no, it's
Maybe
all,
I
it's,
should.
It's yeah.
I'm sure that's not good radio,
No, it's
which is
probably
what
more
we're
radio.
on.
We're all we're more radio than
Radio
we are.
schmadio.
There
is
we
what
go.
I say.
But yeah, no, that's the point, is that you can, that sociopaths, for example, are more actually acting like virtual intelligence, because those people, as I understand, will take and they look at you and they're like, oh, he's sad. I should say something that makes him feel like
And a
I
highly
understand.
functioning
Yeah.
sociopath would
highly
understand
function-
how to use that.
Yeah.
You know, and honestly,
Usually to their own advantage. This is
But
why
they
usually,
can't, so they can read these feelings that they can't themselves feel. Is
Correct.
so that makes them virtual. So
Okay,
are you
and I
saying
wanna-
just imagine that you've grown up in this world where everybody has emotions. You don't. You're like, all right, I'm kind of figuring out that other people feel things. They understand and they see the actions and what feeling makes you do. Like it makes you all depressed if you're all sad for a while.
let's obscure this even further,
Yeah.
because I would say sociopaths do have emotions, but they can't empathize.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
So what do you mean
Yeah.
by that?
Well, basically, what is they can feel things. They could feel
Well, they do
anger
feel joy
or sadness,
and
and
happiness
joy.
and all that. Yeah.
But the aspect where you can see a person, I don't know, suffering,
And
you
see it from their
you kind
perspective?
of feel it.
Yeah.
It's an instinctive thing. When I say feel, you're simulating it in your brain.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they don't have that, but they can learn the behaviors of a person that does.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? If they're really highly functioning, and even they could probably learn at a really rational point, like, okay, it's very advantageous to both them and me if I do this. And honestly, I think you could, though I don't think being a sociopath lends itself to being benevolent, I think you could train a sociopath to be a benevolent being.
Most of them are.
They're benevolent?
Well, benevolent
in a utilitarian sense?
In a utilitarian sense, yeah.
Well, yeah, I think ultimately, because, okay.
Except for your Elon Musk's, I assume that guy is very sociopathic.
What do you,
But he
okay,
does
how
it
do
in
you
a
mean?
benevolent way. So he's highly intelligent.
Yeah.
Obviously, guy is on a different level than most of us.
Okay.
Right?
On a spectrum?
On a spectrum.
Possibly. Okay. So
he's extremely intelligent, but it seems like he doesn't cope with emotions in the same sense, or he'll like, obviously when you're off the charts in an intelligence level, it seems that the empathy works in a different way. Right?
and you're saying his ability to read emotions or feel emotions?
Empathize.
Both.
I think is
Yeah,
what you're
so
saying.
this one would be
Okay.
to because obviously he can read emotions, but he's not going to go, oh, you're sad, that makes me sad. He's going to go, you're sad, you shouldn't be sad anymore. I understand that you should. Yeah,
I don't know.
It's a tricky one.
Wait,
well,
I
maybe
don't know. I don't know enough about Elon Musk, but
Yeah,
I will
let me
say
not
that
point out him
I
as
have.
We dated briefly.
Well, that's
Nice,
the reason I'm going
dude.
to say he's
Did you get a roadster out of it?
Well, that's the reason I'm going to say he's
Roadster sounds dirty.
sociopathic. Is because when's the last guy's had a girl, or last time he's had a girlfriend, or any sort of significant other, from what we understand.
now
Oh
you're
damn,
talking about me now.
we're getting personal on Elon Musk. I've seen the guy almost cry on live TV.
Really?
In fact,
But
it was
why?
actually.
That's exactly
why?
what a sociopath
Well,
would do.
yeah,
All right.
yeah,
Well,
but why? Was it because he didn't see the proper returns on some equation? He's just like,
no.
this makes
I'll
me
tell you the
sad.
story. This is actually a pretty good story. It's there was an every 60 Minutes? Is that the show? Does that sound familiar?
Had the old dude
60
on it,
Minutes.
Yeah, that's every 60
So anyway,
minutes.
they did one with Elon Musk, and they
Or
were
no,
talking about.
60 minutes.
So
not
this
every
is
60.
this was I don't know.
I'm
getting
between every 15 minutes.
yeah. We're getting dark here.
Every
Anyways,
60 minutes.
I don't know. I don't watch.
sociopathic.
I don't watch
African-American.
cable TV. I don't.
Yeah.
I'm a Netflix guy. I'm a millennial who's killing cable TV. Anyways, so he's on the show, and they're talking about. This was back when SpaceX was like really like trying to vie for some like government contracts, I think, and the
Yeah.
whole discussion at this time was, is the future of space exploration in the hands of private companies or the government? Like NASA and stuff.
Yeah.
And basically they had this like panel, I think, in the in Congress where they were like talking about it. They were talking about what they want to fund or something like that.
Congress doesn't know shit
But
about
they were
yeah.
bringing people in, and the crux of it was I think they had Neil Armstrong, or maybe it was Buzz Aldrin. Is that his
Buzz
name?
Aldrin.
Buzz Aldrin. Yeah. Coming in, and they're talking.
Realized there's a Star Wars reference in there. Wow.
There's a Star Wars reference in everything.
Is there a Star Wars reference?
What
But-
the planet?
I'm sorry, like, get
No,
it
yeah,
out
yeah.
before we lose
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
But
yeah,
basically, they're like these old school astronauts. These are the guys who like walked on the moon for the first time.
Yeah.
They inspired like an entire generation of
yeah.
space nuts, like Elon Musk.
Mhm.
And
Fucking
they're talking about
degenerate.
how they were uncertain. They were skeptical, and they were very unsure of a future in which private companies would be leading the whole space exploration thing. They thought that like companies or like organizations like NASA were best in the hands, or at least that's how the show actually presented it.
Yeah.
But Elon Musk was talking about how like, because I mean he's the head of the he's the
Yeah.
face of private companies doing space exploration,
Yeah.
and he was talking about how he was. And so they're kind of talking shit, or at least that's how the show. This is. It turns out there was actually a bit of a editorialization with this whole thing.
Oh, they
with
dressed
how
it
they
up a little
with
bit.
with how they dressed it up. They tried to make it seem like these guys were like dogging
Yeah.
SpaceX, but
Fake news.
Fake news.
it was
He
kind
wasn't wrong.
All right.
That's
It
one
was
of
just-
the things he wasn't wrong about.
Yeah.
But so.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Essentially, like Elon Musk is kind of like he's talking about how like these guys are like kind of skeptical of SpaceX, and he was like, oh, they would never come. I wish that they would like kind of like talk to me, like
Yeah.
got to know me, come in and do a tour, and I don't know. It's like it was really touching the way he seemed to like really care about these like what these guys think, and the fact that the fact that they're like really invested in the whole thing. I don't know. He was kind of like tearing up on camera, so maybe it was staged. I don't
Well,
know.
no, okay,
Here's the thing:
so
we're
let
talking
me-
about the extent to which Elon Musk has like feelings and stuff like that. We don't know shit about Elon Musk.
Let me publicly backtrack that statement.
I want to throw
yeah.
it out there that there's no reason he couldn't be a sociopath and feel very strongly about something.
Yeah, okay, so this,
Unless I'm
let me go on-
misunderstanding
yeah, no,
what a
let-
sociopath is.
No, let me go on that tangent real quick. Is that was my original point with a sociopath? It's not that they can't feel emotions.
It's that he's got a bunch of kids
They're-
buried in his
well,
backyard.
But their emotions
And
are
you said that,
generally
not me.
tied to other things. So, for example, what makes most, like 90%, is that a good number? 90% of people normally really happy. Yeah, no, we'll stick with the majority here.
Oh,
so,
right.
what people that aren't sociopaths, qualified, whatever that, determination is. So those people, what they get excited about and teary about happiness would be some sort of like love in their life or a passion, fucking blurs the line real quick. But for him, it's quite literally that he's tearing up because of something he created, which sounds pretty normal to me. But
I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying.
yeah, it's that maybe emotion isn't applied to the same things
I
that
think-
normal people is.
I think in this case, that example just doesn't exclude
dies
him
off
from being a
because-
sociopath.
yeah.
It doesn't guarantee it either.
It doesn't do anything
So
really
he could
towards
still
it.
disappoint us.
Yeah.
The
I don't
next
know.
American Psycho movie isn't about a tech giant,
Right.
which would be pretty fun.
That would be that'd be the new American Psycho because it's not stock people now.
No.
Stockbrokers. It would be tech giants.
Mm-hmm.
That's the new. Well, they've done a lot. What was the Facebook movie?
There's a Facebook movie.
Yeah, social
remember
media
it had
with
Mark Zuckerberg. The social.
the social media.
Is that what it's
with
called?
like Jesse.
The weird guy.
Ironheart. He was like Lex Luthor.
Yeah. Anyways,
Yeah.
Buzz Aldrin, real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Star Wars reference.
What's up?
Alderaan.
Oh, Aldrin.
Is it a stretch?
Alderaan.
I don't know. We didn't do research
I
before
think
the
they're
show.
spelled
You
the
know
same
what?
way.
Maybe shit.
Yeah, they're spelled the same way, right?
I
I've
know
never-
there's stars,
I've never-
astronauts, Astros.
they-
stars.
I've never
That's the
drawn
one
that
that-
connection
wait,
before.
That's the one
It's
they
It's
blew
very-
up, right?
Yeah, that is indeed the
Yeah.
one that.
And
very
that movie
possible.
blew up.
The movie blew up.
Oh,
They
actually, I
blew
think
up
it was.
Alderaan.
Wasn't it a failure?
No,
Wait,
that was,
episode.
that one
No,
blew
it was.
up.
Yeah, it was a huge.
That was the
success.
very first one.
I thought it wasn't that successful.
In the
Oh no,
70s,
yeah, it was a
right?
blockbuster. It was like one of the first
was?
blockbusters. Yeah.
Okay, we can't stay on the subject too long because I always bring it back.
We
to
haven't been on our
Star Wars
subject at
movie.
all.
Well, that doesn't matter.
I
I
feel like
fucking
I
hate the
just-
prequels.
you know what?
I hate them so much.
I was trying not to go back to the Star
So,
Wars
let me-
because we talk about this every time.
Let me ask you something, Joe. Like, if we have free will, how come our shows we try to like set these parameters
And
for
then we
shows and we
gravitate
go all
towards
over
Star
the
Wars
place?
every
Or,
damn
you know what?
time.
That almost leads the argument for like against predeterminism. I'm starting to think that free will is a thing because we exercise free will in our shows all the time. We talk
Okay.
about whatever the fuck we
No,
want.
we don't because we always
Just
land on
because-
fucking Star Wars.
just-
every fucking time.
Just because something is too this is actually a really good one.
All right.
Just because something is very complex doesn't necessarily mean that it's not quantifiable, even if it's not conceptually quantifiable by a human mind.
Right.
Just because something is complex doesn't mean it's magic. Just because something is unknown doesn't mean it's magic. I feel like I should give some background there.
Yeah, run with that because it makes me think of something else when I think like unknown equaling magic.
Okay, yeah, and
Yeah.
maybe I should be more specific here, but basically what it comes down to is just because something is difficult to understand doesn't mean there's anything that is supernatural about it.
Okay.
Okay, and I think, and honestly, if I believed in free will, I would understand it as a supernatural phenomenon. And granted, I'm sure that people who believe in free will don't think it's supernatural. That they believe
Right.
it is part of the universe, something that originates from the universe. Okay, maybe I don't know that. We didn't look up polls before we started the show.
I didn't look at shit.
Honestly, I doubt anyone would ask anything that specific. I keep looking at the mic.
Yes,
Like, it's like,
they're gonna
hi
ask
guys.
Yeah,
What's
they're
going on?
probably- So I forget that we do these live and that people are probably talking, but it's
Oh.
weird because I enjoy sort of the echo chamber that we get in where we can focus without having a lot of input from the outside
Just like
world.
when you go to a grocery store, you're not looking for a package that's opened, but you are looking for a package. If you know what I'm saying.
I don't know what he's saying.
He knows what I'm saying.
Of course.
Yeah. Those closet doors are real easy to open, Joe.
Going deeper
Monkey
down.
tunnel.
Monkey
All
tunnel.
right, monkey
You're the
tunnel.
one who said
There
it.
we go. Yeah. All right,
All right.
rolling down the monkey tunnel.
All right, but you know what I'm saying, where it kind of comes down to people. Oh shit, I don't even know what I'm saying. But free will.
Free
A lot
will.
of people rely on the complexity of life to assert that there's free will, and I don't think that's a good enough excuse. You know?
The
Right.
complexity of life almost seems to. okay, maybe it doesn't explain predeterminism. I feel like you have to take into consideration the complexity of life into like predeterminism or just actually it's just called determinism.
Determinism, yeah.
Determinism, yes. Sorry, I'm bad at terms.
I know that.
But
No, it's okay. I say predeterminism. I use it interchangeably because honestly, you can. But really, if you say determinism, people know what you mean. But I think when it comes down to is people think, oh, something's complicated, therefore I have free will. It's a logical jump. It's like, well, why did you have that? Why does free will matter? Does it matter if you make your choices, or your choices make you, or your choices were made before? It doesn't matter.
Because you're still sitting here.
Yeah, you're still here
in
this moment. What it does, like I said, because people would ask, okay, so why is it important to understand a predeterministic model? And I think that the two reasons that a predeterministic model are superior to a free will model are that one, it meshes more seamlessly with an understanding of physics where everything is predictive. Where we can predict reality. And in any other aspect of reality, you can predict things. And you can predict human nature. There's marketing. It's not always right, but it is something that a lot of money is invested in.
Here's a crazy concept, though. I think we may have talked about this before. What was that? We talked about this on an episode where if you were to collect enough data, for example, collecting data on people, you can use it for beneficial reasons.
Yeah.
Right? Or malicious reasons. But so if the
I was
idea
going to split hairs with you over that episode.
Right.
I didn't finish it though.
Yeah. Okay.
So I don't want to put words in your mouth. Finish the thought. Sorry.
I'll finish the thought and then throw it out. But so the idea being though that you were saying that because it's predetermined, based on a certain chain reaction of events, it basically satisfies that this world does work in the way that physics assumes. So we can apply science, and when we put gasoline, air, and spark together, we're going to assume there's going to be an explosion. And every damn time we're right. So, on that same theory, if you can clock all the variables, and I mean every fucking variable, that's damn near impossible, but theoretically if you could, you have enough wind sensors out around in the world, you have cameras everywhere that are paying attention to this and that, temperature sensors, everything. It's all put into a giant computer model. You can virtualize the world, speed it up a little, and quite literally predict the future because everything is predetermined.
Don't you also need to understand the extent to which those variables play off each other?
Yes.
Oh, you need almost,
and that's what's called an independent variable, right?
Understanding.
Because it would quite literally would get down to it's really easy in this room to take every possible. I say easy, relatively easy. Because there's different temperatures at different levels in this room. This is a small area.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we have to know at 30,000 feet how fast the wind is blowing, how many molecules are flowing through it, what the air pressure is, what the density of the air, the water content, like humidity, all these different things you'd have to keep track of literally everywhere in the world. And possibly in the galaxy, because if
you wanted to perfectly predict things.
If you wanted to perfectly predict. Now, if you start upping your probability, because of course we're not going to get 100%. But we could start reading a lot of variables and put them into a computer simulation and start getting, here's 3,000 different options of what could happen in the next 10 seconds. And one of those will be correct. That's pretty awesome. Now you start stretching it out and the variables go farther away from what we have measured. That's a tricky one,
But we do that.
But
we actually do that. You know what I mean?
Well, just the odds get farther and farther off. But you can still figure, 1 in 10,000 in 30 minutes, this person's going to light something on fire. I don't know. Like, you can use this.
Honestly, you probably could predict that, yes.
Yeah. Quite literally, yeah.
I guess, just getting back to the point I was going to make when it comes to the value is predictability when it comes meshes with other aspects of knowledge that we know, as opposed to the knowledge that we don't know.
Right.
I get the knowledge of alien beings.
Well, no, that'd be the knowledge that I just talked about, where there's all sorts of random data points.
It's only
things that
this is a semantic thing, but it's only knowledge if someone knows it.
Okay.
But do you know what I mean? Where it's like, okay, there's the predictability aspect where, like, every other aspect of your life, you would count on predictability, but when it comes to free will, for some reason you don't. And I'd argue that's just for emotional reasons. And then I'd argue the second utilitarian purpose for believing in predeterminism is that it allows you to more easily forgive and remove the emotional burdens that come with dealing with other people, because they must do the things that they do, no matter how horrible they are, because they had no choice. and that allows you to give away, kind of give away the angry feelings, sort of a forgiveness thing.
Yeah.
I would say it doesn't rob you from the benefits of making your own choices because you still physically make those choices.
Yeah, you go through the
At a
action
personal
of
level.
weighing the options.
Yeah, and that would be my big throw when it comes to utilitarian. But I don't like to, when it comes to truth claims, I don't like to argue utilitarian versus not, because that's an argument. I mean, you could believe that. I would accept that there was such a scenario. I don't have one, but I would accept there's such a scenario where it's like, it's better that we believe X, but X is objectively not true. I could accept that there's such a scenario where that's. I mean, I think in most cases that's not true.
Yeah.
And I think that emotionally, I would still not buy into it, but I could accept that there would be a scenario where human beings believing this is beneficial, but it's not true. Do you know what I mean?
That's a. Yeah, go. Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? I've heard this
Yeah.
argument before, and it's really a dark. It's a dark zone where it's like, okay,
Right, yeah, we're sitting
Things,
there.
there is
like,
such
we're
things
swinging
that
on
people can believe that aren't true, but it's better that they believe in that.
as
Oh,
opposed to truth.
absolutely.
I believe that's
No,
true.
yeah.
I believe that at a personal level, if I found something wasn't true, then I just wouldn't believe that it was true. You know what I mean? I even if it was beneficial for me to believe that it was true, I would not be able. I wouldn't do it.
Well, what
Okay.
about
And
when?
I think it's just a purely emotional thing because at this
Yeah.
point,
That's the problem with emotion, though, is you start doing things like that aren't logical.
yeah, emotion's very
Yeah.
primal. Where
Very
like
primal,
I have a lot tied up into like, well, I want to believe things that are true, and it's purely emotional. I know that the reason it was born was
I've
born of a
done
need.
that so many times. It's
Yeah.
not, and it sucks because I know when I'm doing it most of the time where I'm like, I'll read 3 things, I'm like, that's bullshit. And I'm like, wait a minute. That actually does make sense. I'm like, I don't like it though. That's why I'm not believing it, is because I don't like it. I've built my beliefs based on something. What was the movie Dogma? Had Jay and Silent Bob in it.
Fuck, I hated that movie.
Did you hate that?
I
love
hated
that movie. Really?
And I still want to split hairs with you over the marketing
but
thing.
there's a what was the quote that Chris Rock, he was in that movie, he said, ideas are good because you can change ideas, but you can't change beliefs. People die to change beliefs. And that's a point, is that once you get especially a group of people together and they have a belief, you have like bloodshed has to happen for that belief to change, usually.
Well, yeah, once
That's
it
the
becomes
issue
to the
with, like,
point
the-
where
yeah.
once your beliefs take the form of like when you incorporate them into your identity, where I mean, granted, someone can convince you out of that. Your
Right.
identity can change, but if it's something that you really have to make the decision on the spot, it is the equivalent of being killed.
Yeah, because you built yourself.
And I think this is where empathy kind of sometimes doesn't screw us, but if you understood that about people, then you might be more inclined to kill them because you understand that in their heads they're going to be dead anyway.
See, I have the opposite viewpoint, that when I'm trying to change somebody's mind, instead of thinking I should kill them instead of changing their mind, I say, I understand where they're coming from, and then I throw this new idea at them very softly. Because
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that I understand why people really took the shortcut when it comes to this stuff.
Right.
I understand the genocide.
Yeah.
I don't apologize for it. I understand why people thought, well, this is really an easy way of going about this. We kind of have to,
Well,
clean house.
It's definitely an
Kill
easy
them
way to
all.
clean house.
That's
If
what I'm
you,
saying. Doing it.
all you
Oh,
have
I'm
to do,
sorry.
all you
Wow.
have to do is just not believe in human rights.
Right.
It's just like once you throw the whole human rights thing out of the
Human
equation.
rights. Well, no,
Gone.
okay, no,
Yeah.
actually,
That's something, and human rights is an example of something. I would say human rights is an example of something that's beneficial for society to believe in that you can't prove correct. You cannot prove that there are human rights. You have to believe that they are there.
only if you believe that they're objectively real. If you believe that, which you okay, when I say you should, I'm making a value claim here. I believe values are subjective. I believe human rights, while beneficial to behave as if they're objective in most cases,
Yeah.
they are artificial entirely.
Exactly. They're a thing that humans need to believe in for the sake of humans.
Yeah,
Because
for society to
if we
work.
didn't believe in them, then terrible things could be justified. The only reason
Right.
why we take a stand against genocide, policy-wise, is because of literally the Human Declaration of Human Rights, or not the human the universe, and like with the whole UN thing. The point is that like that happened because they were like, guys, we need to like declare this shit.
And it was a good move, but
And
you
it
can
was a
see
good
the
move.
limitations of it too.
It's limited in the sense
Do you
that
know what I
it
mean?
technically you can't just point to the human rights and be like, there they are,
Yeah,
they
they're there,
exist.
because they're not objective reality, but they're a good concept, and I
Mm-hmm.
think that you'll see people Because here's the thing about human rights when I get down to it, and again, gets to my, creepy villain side, is I think they're useful to a point.
Gotcha.
Because I do believe there's a time to rain fire in hell and, butcher your enemies wholesale. But I think in most cases, it's a good idea to behave as if people have rights.
Okay.
And that's because you want to build a society where people treat everyone with, like, a certain minimum. You know, that's the place you want to live.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe there are some people that don't want to live in those societies, and I think those are mostly people who live in a society where they have some sort of benefit to not being equal.
Yeah.
But I think for the most part, you want to believe in that, and you want to even extend that to, and this goes to, like, animal rights. I'm not a big fan of it, but I understand why it has a utilitarian value.
Why?
Why I value or not a fan.
Why are you not a fan? I'm curious.
Well, this is the reason I'm not a fan. Is I really don't believe animals are equal to human beings.
Okay.
Okay, and this kind of shows.
I mean, I can throw both sides of this, so I'm just curious.
Actually, this is a good.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you guys excuse me just for a second?
You gotta pee.
Okay. Yeah. I have to pee like a racehorse.
Go
I,
for it, man.
I
So
do
now
too.
that I've thrown that out there,
we
you
can
can
run
talk about
that,
what
yeah,
a piece of shit I am, and I'll be right back, and we'll have a good
He
argument
wants
about
to
this.
kill little ass pigs. You seen little piglets?
Yeah, you know what? I'm not even gonna give Derek. You know what, Derek? Save it for the jury. Save it for the jury. All right.
Close the door.
No, Derek.
Yeah.
Derek has stated that humans and animals aren't on the same level, so
Right.
we can at least definitely confirm that he's okay with the large slaughter of like innocent animals. I think.
Yeah,
like cats,
okay,
you
so
know.
here's something. For example, what was it? What are those little? They have a shell.
Turtles?
You dive for them. No, they're they look like rocks.
They have a shell.
They start with an A. And oh jeez, fuck it. Anyways, they're tiny little creatures. They're kind of like clams, right? So clams do not have any sort of processing going on in their brains, right? None. They don't have brains. They just have a nervous system that reacts to like temperatures and like they know that something's trying to eat them, so they'll close up. Or when basically they have some sort of defense mechanism that says, okay, something's trying to eat me, and they close. They don't feel pain though. They don't feel a lot of these things. So for animals like that, it's even tough to call them an animal because they're simply a biological thing that reacts to its outside, kind of like a tree does, right?
Well, are they described as animals, or are they described more like not bacteria, but like
right, because bacteria doesn't feel.
Yeah, the bacteria is. There's
products that
there's a different classifier that I'm trying to think of that's like. But yeah, they don't they don't feel, they don't, or they don't have like their nervous system doesn't work like.
It's just a nervous system. It's not a pain receptor and this and that. It's simply like a cause and effect, a true false. It's almost like a computer, where it's like, hey, there's some sort of bad input. I'm gonna close up, and roll with that. So, but the idea of that is yes.
Nice.
For the most part, animals are less. I would say all animals are less than humans.
Did you guys just make all my arguments for me while I was gone?
Probably.
Yeah, we set up a
Are you going for the
yeah,
tie?
I'm about to do.
Yeah,
I'm fucking pissed
Okay.
too.
Well, good.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So let me.
Now, okay, folks, it's
Fucking
time
rookies over here.
for my one-on-one with Joe, the largest bladder in the 48 continuous.
Well, I wouldn't say that. We haven't gotten past the Willie bathroom break. I might just take off right after him. But
It's okay. I'll do some poetry.
yeah, no.
Okay.
Let's not
Animals.
not subject people to that.
It's alright. It's not that homoerotic.
Gonna do.
We got some lesbian stuff in there too.
There we go.
It's
Yeah.
for everyone.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, not for
so,
everyone.
so you're explaining that. What was the bad thing? Let's say I were to take the PETA stance.
Okay,
right?
go ahead.
Where you just said that animals
Or not equal.
are
to
not
people.
equal to humans.
Yes.
Okay, obviously I don't believe that, but we're gonna roll with it.
Go
What
for
the
it.
fuck, man? Does that mean they have no rights?
Okay. Alright, okay, I'm going to try not step this back so far as I'm going to say, well, I actually don't think human beings have any rights. But, okay.
Because I'm gonna interject about that picture. You see that picture, real quick? The monkey selfie.
Sounds
So
familiar.
there's. I'm gonna give you the quick story.
Oh,
Well,
Rob wants you to know that he's driven insane that he can't use the keypad and has to use the mouses. The mouses.
Oh, tell
He's
him.
got two
Tell
mouses.
him to hit the Rob hit the num lock button,
Yeah,
on
you
the
numb,
keys.
you numbskull.
and then it will allow you to hit the keypad
Yeah. Anyway, you were saying
Anyways,
that monkey
so,
selfie.
Monkey selfie.
Monkey
so
hole
it was
tunnel.
early down the monkey tunnel here. We were going. It was I think July of last year. I don't know when it was, but there was a photographer in like the wilderness jungle area, and he had a camera set up that he was taking pictures remotely of these monkeys. Right. And then he had another camera sitting off to the side that was on, and all that. A monkey picked up the camera and was like fumbling around with it, and it happened to point the camera at itself and press the shutter button. And what you get, it's a picture. It's the monkey selfie. It's a fantastic picture. And anybody who's still watching at this point should go watch or go look it up. It's a hilarious picture. But the point is that this guy now went back to the States. He's stoked. He's got like the Times magazine cover picture. It's this monkey taking a picture. It's a selfie. A lot of people found this picture and started using it. So he'd email them and be like, hey, cease and desist. Look, this is mine. I went all the way over there. I took this picture. It's my property. They go, no, it's not. It's the monkey's property.
Well,
and this went to court. And basically, PETA jumped on the monkey side.
Oh, hey, you guys are gonna show.
Because for them,
come on in.
they were saying, they jumped on it because this is a historical case. For the first time ever in the history
You're
of
talking
the
about the
world,
monkey selfie.
The monkey selfie. It was ruled that the monkey owned the property of his selfie. So therefore, the photographer.
Now that's a monkey hole, because now you're opening up the argument that they have access to like intellectual property or just property in general.
Individual court
That's a monkey
cases
hole.
aside.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that was the reason they did it. This was the first precedent was set now that an animal can own intellectual property.
They should literally call that the monkey hole.
This is the monkey hole.
All right.
And
Listen,
so-
I'm not technically against a non-human holding intellectual property.
Okay.
And granted, I'm about to draw a very blurry line in the sand.
All right.
Because I'd be like, if an animal is intelligent enough, which good
Well,
luck
so-
to figuring out what I mean by that.
Well, so let's throw that out. I wonder if you take the smartest chimp and the dumbest human.
Yes, I believe the human. Well, okay, when you say dumbest, you mean function. Okay, again, this is a blurry
How do you-
line.
how do you measure-
Are we talking about someone who's mentally retarded, or are we talking
Well,
about?
because vegetables don't count.
Yeah, but
Because
like,
you can't measure vegetables.
Well, this is problematic because we don't even really have a good way of measuring intelligence with humans.
Horrible.
no, and I'm
The
really,
IQ,
I'm
like,
really
there's a
going
lot of
to-
problems with the IQ
A
system.
lot
Yeah.
of my arguments I'm about to make are really going to rely on the "come on, guys, you know what I'm talking about" crutch.
That's what the show is built on.
Good point.
Right. Yeah. That's entirely how we run
travel
our
down
shit.
the monkey hole with me about animal rights,
Yeah.
excluding my opinion on human rights.
Right.
Okay. I believe that to an extent that there's a positive benefit to treating human beings with dignity. Animals with dignity. Yeah. I'm really outing myself here today, aren't I?
Yeah.
I'm Hitler, by the way. You know,
We invited fucking
I didn't do
Hitler to
anything
our
wrong.
show over here.
I just wanted you to know. No, but
God damn.
I do believe there's a positive value to treating, animals, especially things that are close to us, with dignity.
Yeah.
I believe that positive value is entirely selfish. Okay, Jesus, that's getting into
Selfish.
another can
Yeah.
of worms because I believe all of that's the ultimately selfish. But
Keep rolling with it amongst yourselves.
okay, here we go.
I was talking
The
shit.
champion's bladder finally glives away.
Yes.
It glives away, Willie.
All right, hubby, let's break this down.
All right. So ultimately, what I think is, okay, I don't believe that there is a value to putting animals at the same level as humans. And I'm gonna phrase it that way because I believe value is entirely subjective. You know what I mean? I guess the delay just kicked in and Rob started laughing. All right, but and so when it comes to that, if there's no, because animals have a utilitarian value that, I believe they should be treated in ways, or it has a utilitarian value that can't be utilized if you treat them exactly as human beings. I also believe that they don't have the same, most animals don't have the same ability to make judgment calls, even the most intelligent ones. Now, if I did believe that, if I believed they were on the same level as humans, then I would believe that they should be treated with equal rights. Do you know what I mean?
Would they need to be on the same level as humans, or would they just need to pass like a threshold of
Okay, good point. That there could be a good enough level.
Yeah, because like
not a high school diploma,
to my
but a
understanding,
GED.
yeah, like my understanding is that dolphins are like pretty intellectual. They're like as close as it gets, or maybe chimpanzees are as close as they get
They're
to
pretty
humans.
close.
But and what determines that is the function of their brain, like what kind of stuff their brain has that allows them to do this exist. Like
Yeah.
humans, the main thing that sets us apart is our reasoning abilities.
I believe that if they okay, but here's the thing: is even if you had another species on the planet that was capable of language, and I mean real language, not some bullshit, language in the way that we could make it, maybe even written language. Let's go ahead and throw that out there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, written language
It's
is
a big step because there's a lot of creatures that have a language, but it's not. It doesn't appear to be the same level that we have it. Let's go as far as written language.
that's
Do you know what I
culture.
mean?
Yeah, that is like you are able to create things.
Because I could believe there's such a thing as a creature that had written language, but was still dumber than we were.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
And
yeah.
at that point, okay, this is getting, I guess, into the danger zone. And I suppose, in order to understand why I don't believe animals should be treated the same way, I should talk about human value. And human value, I think, is okay because it's like, okay, well, if you don't think that something that isn't intelligent in the same way you are should be treated with the same rights, then why are you for extending human rights to people who are incredibly mentally handicapped? I'm like, okay, because I do believe that. I believe they should be treated with the same human dignity.
Yeah.
And so my answer to that would be, and this may sound a bit cold and very utilitarian, because it is. And it's because if you get to harsher conditions, people would just kill those people that we didn't have to use resources to keep them alive.
In older times, especially like where
they did not treat them the same.
No, they couldn't because you had a pack of people, let's say like caveman times or whatever, early humans. If you couldn't keep up with the pack, Spartans.
Bronze Age.
Was it
Bronze Age
justified?
and prior.
Is that a question we even want to touch?
well,
I want to
back
go so
then,
far as to say,
justified,
I want to go say yes. I want to say
Yeah.
that they could probably get away with keeping them, but it would have been a greater burden than it is to us.
Right. Yeah. Well, because back in the day, like you
the
got tired as
value-
a lion and shit.
yeah.
You know.
The
so.
value of keeping those people alive is that it inflates your own value, and that is the reason you do that. Is because it protects it's like protecting money, the value of money. Money is a completely virtual thing.
Yeah.
It only works because we all agree that this piece of paper or a piece of metal has a value. There's nothing backing other than the fact
it's the paper because the metal just transfers.
yeah,
the
it has a
paper,
value, but you know what I'm saying. And ultimately, it's because we say it does. Extending dignity to human beings who are mentally handicapped allows us to inflate our own value. As cold as that sounds, I believe completely that's the reason you do it.
I think I know who's a sociopath in this room.
Well, it's an interesting.
I drown children.
No, it's an interesting.
Oh, I mean, I'm here.
I like we're talking about this because there's a lot of people who maybe like they would believe that, and they would feel like if we demonize thinking that way, then like people who actually think that way won't. They'll be afraid to speak their mind, and I don't want people to be afraid to speak their mind. So it's like I guess what I'm trying. So I personally don't believe that. Like, for example, I'm a big advocate of I guess you would call it social justice for people with mental handicaps, like intellectual disabilities. Like, if they would be in special education, I believe that they should be treated as human beings to the full extent. I believe that.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
Yeah,
I'm going to be absolutely clear. I believe the same thing.
Yeah.
The root of that belief is, I want to say it started as emotional because it did. But ultimately, it became something rational and utilitarian.
Yeah.
And you're right, it is a different. Ultimately, even though our end goals are the same, our beliefs are different in that aspect.
Yeah.
Because if we were back in a more resource scarce time, I would probably still go along with caring for the mentally handicapped, but I have a more difficult time justifying it.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I'm really coming off as a monster, but I swear I'm not.
It really,
I'm not that bad.
Well, to be fair, too, like, I maybe this will be helping you out, but like, it depends on the situation. Like,
well, it's.
Context is
we're kind of
everything,
I mean, like, are we like short on food or something like that?
Yeah,
like, what are our options?
We are. For example, you have somebody old. Nowadays, we have life
I
support
would
that'll
agree
keep
with that,
people going.
But I would believe that it's beyond that. And honestly, I know I'm opening the door to some really not dangerous, inconvenient. Because the door I'm opening is inconvenient, where it goes to there's a brain dead person who's basically dead.
Yeah.
And okay, you might spiritually think that the person's body still houses a soul and that they should be kept alive. I'm trying to remember the name of the case. Florida.
Yeah. I can't remember that case, but it happens
It
quite
was a
often.
big
Actually,
thing. That was a big one. You're right. And I'm not saying that.
Because nowadays people are pretty attuned to this, the nature that they need to kind of pull the plug, because that's the whole pull the plug case.
Yeah, when you pull the plug, other than the fact that you really, guys, if you're listening, all three of you, Sam.
Might be 2.
Sam,
at
I
this
know you're
point.
listening at this
Oh, we
point.
got at least Sam. What Sam
Yeah.
is.
Listen. It's really important in your will to like spell this shit out, so your loved ones really don't have to fight over this shit, because you're putting the burden of guilt on them. You need to give people a way out. If you're a vegetable and you want that to be the end, then you should really put that down somewhere.
Definitely.
Right.
Make it very clear.
Yeah.
And that
Well,
should
so-
be
and
an
that's-
option for people.
They actually
Yeah.
make that pretty clear. So, I don't know about you guys, but when I went, I think it was the driver's license, but if it wasn't the driver's
It is
license,
the driver's
they
license.
definitely go a little harder when you go for your motorcycle license. They're like, hey, by the way,
You're hip
Yeah.
to the garden, buddy.
do you want...
You are a vegetable.
Yeah, no, they kind of push a little extra on that whole organ donor thing when you get your M1. And I understand why, of course. It's because a decent percentage of M1 holders end up on that table, you know? And so it's one of those, they're like, hey, by the way, you know, there's perfectly good organs you got there. You wanna just pass those on? So, but that's the point, is that they say they get those not the DNRs, because that's do not resuscitate, but they make sure once you get to that vegetative point, it's like, hey, look, we don't have the science at this point to get you back,
Yeah.
if you're even still there, because at a certain point of damage, you may be breathing, but
Yeah.
not really.
I know we're getting into the concept of personhood, but I think everyone can admit that, okay, maybe not everyone, but I think most people can admit that there's a certain point where you that was you is functionally
quiet here.
It's time for the ASMR part of the show. I'm gonna just scrape on the mic for a little while.
Yeah.
No, that sounds a little gay.
Anyways,
All right,
so to
wait.
bring us back out of that monkey hole,
Yeah.
Maybe
monkey tunnel.
if there's
Monkey
one thing that
tunnel.
we gotta talk about before we end tonight, lay it on us. Like, what was the marketing episode? Like, what's your
Yes.
What's your 2
What's-
cents?
yeah,
What's your
Mr.
2 cents on that? Because let's do
Mr.
it.
Wiretap over here. You were talking about the aspects. You're actually talking about all the positive aspects of that data collection methods.
So yeah.
And while I suppose I wouldn't have a big issue with the positive aspects, I
Yeah.
think you took it too hard from the stance that this is entirely a cold machine that markets, but it's not.
Okay.
I'm going to use an extreme example.
Okay.
I'm going to use an
Yeah.
extreme example, and in this case, I'm not going to say a right or wrong, but it's the idea of I'm not even going to go registration, but we'll go background checks for firearms.
All right.
The downside to it, even though I'm pro background check, I'm against registration.
Right.
However, there's an aspect to background check that I have a problem with. Because, obviously, if you have a background check, it's going to throw a name out there. It would be very easy, legal or otherwise,
Yeah.
to create a list.
Yeah.
Behind all marketing programs and machines, there's a human heart beating. A corruptible, dangerous human being at the helm of everything.
Oh, yeah.
And really what it comes down to, granted, okay, I'm definitely strawmanning you here, as I look at the mic lovingly.
Okay.
Hi.
I feel like I know where you're going with this, and I
Do
feel
you-
like I'm about to agree with you.
Okay, do you know? Okay, but I don't. Since I didn't watch the whole episode, I don't want to put words in your mouth,
Sure,
Joe.
go
I
for
don't
it,
watch
yeah,
all
yeah.
the episodes either.
But you
Yeah.
said,
What did I say?
Put
you
John,
said
put
that
him on
the-
trial.
basically that the whole aspect of passively collecting on you when it comes to basically eavesdropping through listening devices like
Right, yeah.
Alexa,
Yeah. To own.
fucking bitch.
She's outside like, what is it?
Yes.
She couldn't find Rebellion runes after I had her play it once. She's fucking with me.
She should know. Yeah.
But basically by collecting information, okay, it's one thing to collect if you put it out there when you type it out and you're like, okay, Google, find me this bullshit.
Right.
I don't really have a big issue with that because at that point you're using their private company directly.
Yeah.
However, okay, and the argument can be made if you
What
bring
is-
a fucking wiretap into your home knowingly,
Mhm.
that if an eavesdropping device, then honestly you are allowing it to happen.
You are, and that's.
And
one of
maybe
the
I'm
things.
arguing against myself here
Yeah,
because I'm
it
like at
sounds
that
like-
point
it sounds like
if
you're
you're
selling
okay
your-
with it,
Yeah.
because I wasn't going to back
But what
when.
extent do people are they aware of the fact that they're like giving up their?
And I guess at
Right.
this point, this is a consumer, a kind of a consumer thing where I'm like, okay, if you're gonna be a company that does this, then you should make it very clear you do this and not fucking,
Well,
bullshit
They
around.
don't. They don't
Let's-
always. absorb
Yeah,
even
No,
mostly.
well, they don't always. But here's the thing: is the general consumer is not very intelligent.
They
all
are.
right.
Well, they don't know what to look for.
Well, yeah, because
Can
they're
you
not
blame them?
educated. That's the thing. No, I
Yeah.
can't blame them. Not by all means.
It was fate after all.
For me, and I'm heavily embedded in the tech world. Like I understand
Yeah.
how and why, and a lot of the bullshit tricks that a lot of these things use.
And you're probably still getting bamboozled.
Oh yeah.
Hey,
Well,
Sam,
here's
if
the
you're
thing is
listening,
that
I don't mean that you were going to become a vegetable.
here's the thing is that I ignore it without things. For example, what happened is I installed all these Alexas in my house, or the Amazon Dots, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I have them in like every room.
Every room.
And when I first got it in the first week, I'm going through the little settings on my phone, and there's actually a little area that you can go and listen to the commands. And I was like, I'm curious, so I clicked on that, and there's a list, and I can press on them. And even if it wasn't me, I hear my roommate, for example, go, Alexa, hey Alexa, turn on the light. Like he's saying all these different things to the lights, and I can hear it, and it shows the time, what's going on. And I'm like, holy shit, this is kind of weird. And then I heard my own voice, and I'm like, holy shit, this really drives it home. Like this thing is listening to me all the time. These are the only things that are.
And somebody has a
categorized.
similar list.
You just triggered Alexa in your kitchen.
Alexa, stop being a bitch.
Yeah, you're gonna trigger it.
I don't think she's gonna follow that
because
command.
I have one in the kitchen and in the living room. So if we say that, much like that South Park episode, I'm telling her what to do. So this is why we need to get Rob a little intercom. Have him interject to be awesome.
No, attention, Joe.
Yeah,
Alexa went off in the
Alexa
kitchen.
went off, yeah. But yeah, no, it's interesting. Even as aware as I like to think I am, probably not. You know, it still catches me off guard sometimes.
I suppose the only thing that I would take issue with, because if it comes down to if people understand that they're being eavesdropped. Guess we're talking about my
You're not
human rights
intelligent
now,
enough
huh?
to be eavesdropped on. So,
So if they,
you don't have rights anymore, dude.
if they're if they're fucking listening in, then
Well,
then as
Facebook.
long as you know it's happening
Yeah.
and you willingly accepted it, then I don't really have a problem with that. Do you know what I mean? Like if a consenting adult who makes a decision, you know,
But
has
here's-
it, and
here-
even
this
then,
is the episode of South Park. You see the Human Centipede episode of South Park?
yeah.
So that's what, for example, Google Drive. You use Google Drive?
All the time.
Every one of your files is indexed on Google Drive.
Yeah.
You're aware of this, right? So even though it may not be available to your space, they're still using it for their own data caches, where they'll look through your essays for school purposes. Any pictures you have on there are indexed in facial recognition. All these things, they do that. It's in the agreement. I didn't read through it, but my friend
Nobody
who's a
does.
little smarter than I did.
I hope
did.
they are reading my papers. They're probably the only one who's going to be reading my academic work.
People. Your professor has to as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
well,
They're paid
his
to.
assistant will, but
Yeah.
it's alright.
Yeah, his assistant was not actually a
Yeah.
professor. Yeah.
No, I get what you're saying there, and I think honestly it's my angry mom coming out, which is a really weird personality that doesn't
Yeah.
come out that often.
We've all
but
got it.
yeah, we do. And there's
We
the
all
other
got
aspect
it.
is like I don't think you harped on, and I didn't watch the whole episode, so I don't know if you did.
Okay.
So I don't know.
Well, go for it.
So
I don't
yeah,
know if my
I'll correct
criticism's
you from
valid.
whatever.
Yeah.
All
because
right, my thing is
I know my standpoints usually.
okay. I'd bring up, and this is I don't want to derail this too much, but the government paradox, which is people can't govern themselves without a government. I'm not an anarchist.
Okay.
Like I really am. Like there has to be some look at the size of the government, the extent of which it needs to control people. That is up to debate, but I believe that there needs to be a government, and I believe that there's an inherent flaw in government where
Right.
you're pulling from
They're
the
run
pool
from
of-
people.
Well, yeah, you people can't govern themselves, so you use people to govern people. There's a flaw
Right.
there,
Well, here's
and
the-
it's an
here's the problem.
unavoidable flaw. And I think that it comes down to with marketing where they're eavesdropping on you. Is there's definitely a red-blooded beating heart behind that cold machine, and if that person decides to turn the machine, because the machine's just a giant tool,
Yeah.
you could kind of be screwed.
Here's
But I suppose you could neuter my entire by saying if I accepted it willingly, then what am I supposed to say? Am I saying no?
but here's the thing: is it's not will. So here is and I know this particular point I brought up before on an episode, but I'm gonna take it a step further. We're actually is one of the idea box things that we had. We don't have an idea box, but we've been talking about this for a
Should get
while.
an
Oh yeah, it's supposed to be sitting right
Everyone
the
needs
fuck
one.
You
there.
should also get a business line. That way people can call in.
No, well, so talk to Taryn about that. He wants to be our phone screener.
Dude, I'm just saying, it'd be a fun idea.
Hello? Nope.
No.
Hello? No.
Am I on the air? Faggot.
But so the idea being that a question on the same sense as the free will.
Mhm.
How much of what we do on a daily basis is actually our own choice?
All of it.
Okay.
Any part that is a choice is your choice. Now, how much of...
Well, so here's my.
I know what you're asking.
Yeah,
though.
yeah.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to be
let
a dick.
Yeah,
I know
let me
you're
elaborate because I get what you're going. So
what is internal and what is external?
external, and how much does that subliminally affect what we're doing?
Immediately external.
Immediate. So, for example, I saw this,
You saw a picture of a dick.
and then suddenly I'm drawing a dick on paper.
you're
It's
talking-
it's
yeah.
weird. Yeah. No. What happened? So Willie was asking me. He's like, "Hey, we need some subjects for the next show," and I'm like, "I'll think of something," because that's generally how I do it. I just
Yeah.
come up with an idea the day or two before, and I'll be like, "Hey, Willie, this is what we're gonna talk about," and usually it's cool enough that he'll say, "Yeah, let's go with it." But
Did it
I
ever
was
hit
sitting there.
you?
I was drawing a blank for what, like a whole week, right? And it was like Friday, or no, it was Thursday at like midnight. And I was sitting there. I think I just got home from work or something, and I'm watching. I happened to either pop open YouTube or I was on. Yeah, I had to be on YouTube because then a Vsauce came up.
Yeah, it's always Vsauce.
So
Michael here.
No, yeah, Michael here. And so I was like, I'm gonna watch this because it's always the little like clickbaity titles. I'm like, fuck yeah, I wanna watch
For the
this.
baby on his head and just...
Just rub it all.
You guys know what
Michael,
Seinfeld I'm referencing?
No, I don't.
Okay, keep
No.
going.
So anyways, I watched some video. I can't recall exactly what the subject of the video was, but
Probably
I do
something
remember.
nuts.
What's that?
Probably something nuts.
Yeah, something crazy. But then I do recall that the next day I was at work and I'm like, shit, you know what would be a cool idea for a video or for an idea to talk about is this. And then I was thinking about like the different points that I might bring up, and I was like, holy shit, this is the Vsauce episode I watched last night. And then I realized at that moment, I'm like, whoa, how much of what I come up with on a daily basis is actually my own thinking?
Yeah.
You know, versus what I see.
But here's the problem, and I know this is really gonna fuck shit up, because I know what you mean. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
I know what
honestly,
you mean. That you
this
know
is
what I
a
mean.
really
That you know what I mean.
yeah.
You know
No,
what I mean, yeah.
that's actually, but saying that is actually an important distinction because, we've been around each other long enough that our language. Okay, this comes into when I was talking about like the language of talking to your therapist.
Okay.
Because
this is something we talked about off air.
no
though,
one on
prior,
the pre-show was here, so maybe I should fill you guys in.
Yeah.
I was just briefly talking about because I've gone to therapy for 6 years now.
Oh shit! Yeah.
Yeah, I've gone to various therapists for 6
Happy
years.
anniversary.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, it's good. It's a good thing. I'm not.
No,
I'm not being
it's good.
facetious
It's
here.
good. No, I know. I've gone to therapists for 6 years, and honestly, the effectiveness of therapists and honestly, a psychologist or
Psychiatrist?
yeah, fucking
Psychiatrist.
Psychiatrist.
Psychiatrist. It's the right word.
I know
but
what you meant.
The emphasis was
I'm-
on the wrong syllable.
Right. I hope that didn't come back to get me in a nightmare.
That's a fucking. Dad
But
joke. I'm
there
going
comes
off
to
this.
it comes to being familiar with a person, and
Yeah.
I call it the language. When you teach someone how to speak your language, and normally it happens organically, where you and me we hang out for a while, so we use similar terms, and eventually.
Right.
Have you ever been around me and Rob when we were just using YouTube poop references for like 20 minutes straight?
I
my
probably
God.
was, but I didn't understand any of it.
Yeah,
because I
it sounds like
wasn't
we're
watching
speaking a
YouTube.
different
Yeah.
language because we understood each other's references. Like when I listened
That's
to
about the time I stopped hanging out with you guys. I'll bet.
yeah,
Oh man,
was
I
like,
love
fuck
YouTube.
this
Poop.
shit. I'm out.
but
I
like
could probably speak your language.
oh no, it's good. It's sus. But like we would we know what to say to each other,
Yeah.
and it's same with a therapist. It's absolutely the same with a therapist, where you you have to teach a person.
It's a deeper level of understanding.
Yeah, it's not just learning them, but you have to teach a person, like, when you say a word, okay, this is really abstract, so this isn't going to be super useful, but
Run with
when
it.
when you say a word, you have to teach the therapist what that word means to you.
Yeah, so well, here's
You
my.
have to describe it
It's
to them
that so
emotionally.
language is a baseline.
Thank you.
Right.
As ironic as it is. Bless you.
Bless you. After all we've talked about, but so language is the baseline of communication. It gives us a framework, but for language to really work, it's an emotional. We have to understand true emotions. That's
Yeah.
why texting doesn't work all the
Well,
time.
that's
you know,
why it fails.
It does, but after a while. So here's something: when you've been texting a person for months at a time, or years, or it's like a person that you hang out with on a daily basis, you can text letters even, and they know what you mean. Versus a person you first are talking to, you could do full, complete sentences.
You establish a
and there's
repertoire.
still a misunderstanding.
Yeah. And there can still be a text
There
because
still
there's just not as
can
much
be.
data. But yeah, I know what
Yeah.
you're saying. And what you do is you have to teach. You have to actually train your therapist how to understand what it is you're saying.
Right.
And that's what I think it comes to, like, getting the most out of a therapist is, like, okay, when I say this word, I'm trying to think of an example, because I have my relation to language is different than most people's. Okay,
That sounds really like you're acting like you're special over here.
I'm better than you.
Are you a sociopath?
And no.
Is that what's going on?
No, I just don't feel anything, and I'm better than you.
All right.
But I'm not a sociopath.
Dick.
Yeah. But I had to basically train my therapist, like, when I said a certain word. I'm trying to remember what it was. Because there are words where, like, my emotional connection to a word is different than most people's.
Okay.
And most importantly, it doesn't matter if it's most people's. It doesn't matter if it's average or not.
Doesn't matter. You have your own.
Your therapist
That's
has a relationship to a word.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm trying to remember. Power was probably one of them.
Okay.
The word power.
Yeah.
Your relationship to that word is different than their relationship. You have to teach them how it is you feel about that.
Yeah.
So when you say that word, they understand what it is you're talking about. Because if they don't, then they'll have to revert to the understanding of you, the average understanding or their understanding, which is probably going to be somewhere close together. And so you have to, in order to get the best out of a therapist, you have to train the person to, understand what it is that you mean. Because even though you might be able to speak normally, there's a level of emotional connection that they're trying to analyze that you have to train them to understand. It's like, oh, when I say this word, this is what I mean. And it can be a good example is like, oh, what's your relationship with your mother? If you want to do the whole Freudian, like, couch therapist bullshit.
Yeah.
But it's like, basically, what's the relationship with this word? When I say violence, this is what I mean. When I say power, this is what I mean. This is the way I feel about it. That way they understand, oh, I'm not dealing with this kind of person, I'm dealing with this kind of person. This is the way they see it.
Yeah.
When they talk about control, they don't mean it necessarily in a really weird, like, control freak sort of way, but they're literally talking about control of their life, their emotions. You have to train the person to understand what it is you're saying.
Yeah.
Because language is somewhat limited, where we all kind of understand what we're saying, and the more time you spend with someone, the better you understand them, but there are aspects of what I'm saying that's not getting transmitted because it's invisible. It's all in my head. The emotional aspects entirely.
Gotcha,
Now, I might be able, if I'm skilled, be able to draw certain emotional reactions from you. And that partially is because of empathy. And that's partially our inner sociopath who learns to calculate.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Because, honestly, the negative aspects are you're manipulating someone to a dark end. The positive aspects are you're just like a positive salesperson who knows how to get across what it is you're saying.
Well, and so, you can look at
Salesperson was
both
probably a bad
those,
example, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, well,
There are non-evil salespeople. I work with one of them.
It would be William H. Macy if it's a salesperson. It's going to be your door-to-door. But that's a huge point, is that you have to understand the difference between simple text and truly communicating with someone. Because that's what you're talking about there, is that after so much time you train somebody to understand what you actually mean. Truly trying to communicate. Much different than, just simply using words to communicate a basic idea.
Yeah, and I suppose if anyone was going to therapy, because I know you'll have some sessions that they're just off days.
Right.
I mean, you don't think you really get anything done, and I'd argue that just going there helps with the structure. That you're trying to implement.
There's no such thing as an off day, even, because even the off days, you're going to be learning something about someone, and it's because I would compare it to even like a relationship. Even when you're, because that's all you're doing. You're building a relationship with your therapist.
Ultimately, yes, that's exactly my human rights.
But that's what you're doing is the same way that most people. There's no such thing as an off day in a relationship because you're learning the person. Is what you're, that's ultimately what you're doing.
As well as they learn you learn them, and you train each other how to speak.
That's actually probably, now that I think about it, when it comes to therapy, if you're having a great day and you're ready to go every damn time, you're not taking full advantage. You have to have an off day because they have to learn to see you on the days that you're not ready, you're not prepared, you're not on your A game or whatever it is. The same way, because how do you get to know somebody if you haven't seen them in every light? You know?
That would make sense.
So it's actually really important that you go on your off days as well. At least it makes sense, just logicking through it now. But
no, that's exactly how it is. Willie, do you mind throwing me another one?
Yeah, sure. What do you want?
Just throw a little Coke and whiskey in there if you don't mind.
Yeah.
I know the ice
Here,
is
I'll
gone.
mix that one up. Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And it really comes down to it is a relationship aspect where you're building a relationship with a person. I think that honestly this because it sounds a little I don't want to say it sounds creepy because to me it doesn't sound creepy anymore.
Yeah.
But training another person on how to understand you is pretty essential, and it's something that happens naturally. With a therapist, they require a much more in a shorter period of time, a much more in-depth version of you.
Right.
And in parts of you that you necessarily wouldn't share, the parts of you that you actually go out of your way to not train people, you
Right.
might. I'm speaking for myself because I do have my two faces. Do you know what I mean? My three faces. I have the one I show my therapist, the one I go to work with, and the one I'm by myself. I do have this.
Which one are you here with?
Oh, this is the fourth face.
Fourth.
I'm talking about my dick.
No. There we go.
But, you know.
So you're a dick face.
I'm a dick face.
How about that?
Yeah. That way you're not giving me a drink right now?
No, yeah, because you're a dick face. I'm gonna hold this over here, you fucking dickhead.
No, but that's literally what it is. You have to train these people how to talk to you.
Mhm.
Otherwise, they won't know what to do. And
Are you gonna not be a dick face?
I'm not gonna. Well, yeah. I mean, what did I say there? Have I not trained you enough?
All right. But
But you know what I'm saying.
no, nonetheless, it's important to be able to train to create that optimum communication, right? And so that's the huge one. It's how can you create that?
Well, a lot of it comes down to, as fruity as it sounds, poetic understanding, emotional understanding, because, I don't know how true the Freudian model is of the mind.
That seems a little stereotypical. Because when was the Freudian model invented?
It was old, but I think it has value because he describes the ego as like a rider over the much more powerful horse, the id.
Yeah, my understanding is that Freudian psychology has been kind of like expanded on, and they've changed a lot of it. But
it's like Darwinism or Darwinist theory of evolution. It's very different now.
It's
Yeah.
been
No
a
one
lot
really follows that anymore, but that was the basis of all things.
Yeah, it was
it's
an establishing
the
point.
game changer.
Yeah.
Because there's
Where people
definitely
are like,
the
wait a minute, you
grandfather,
might
if
be
you will.
right.
there's
Yeah,
definitely different like aspects to like consciousness. I definitely believe in that. Like,
And I think he was on to something there when he came with the relationship between the id and the ego, and maybe even the superego as well. But when he talks about like the id is being, an almost uncontrollable beast. It's all
Yeah.
it's your inner child. It's
Your
all the
appetites.
instincts, all the desires, the appetites. Yeah,
Yeah.
all the things that you want and that drive you to action.
right.
And the ego reconciles that with reality, where it's like,
Gotcha.
okay, well, you can't do this, but you can do this.
Yeah.
It is the one, and ultimately is the one who drives it. And I think that you're trying to describe to a person when you try to describe to a person your most inner, personal, like, relationship with yourself.
Yeah.
You're trying to describe it, and you don't really have words for that because normally people don't describe their insides outside.
Yeah.
And even if you did, I don't know how you would do that because really with psychology, unless it's neurology, or neurology, you can actually scan the brain. You can set measurable things.
It's a physiological
Yeah.
difference versus an emotional and
Yeah, when you're getting anywhere else in psychology other than neurology, it's all you're feeling around in the dark, and you're trying to train someone to, okay, this is what my desires are.
Right.
This is what these words mean.
Yeah.
Christ, what the hell are we talking about? You know what I'm talking about.
Right.
But I don't know what I'm talking about.
you get into crazy shit when you're close to the 100-minute mark.
No,
Yeah,
seriously.
well, so that's the thing. So what we might do, we've been at this for a while, been drinking pretty heavy. We've made some damn good points.
We're about to make our second piss.
Yeah, really.
Geez, you guys are already ready?
I'm almost.
I'm good.
There.
I'm good, but if we go for another 20 minutes,
Anyways,
I'll probably be
yeah,
pissing
I'm
again.
down. I'm just saying.
I think it's about time we wrap this up for the night.
Okay.
But god damn it, Derek, thanks for coming out, man.
Yeah, man.
This
Oh, bus.
was a fucking good show.
Oh,
Thanks
yeah.
for going down the monkey hole with us.
Yeah, the monkey tunnel.
The monkey tunnel. The MT.
So that'll be the subject. I'll just rename this one the monkey
The
tunnel.
monkey tunnel.
That's the name of our show.
That's definitely the name of this episode. The monkey tunnel.
The monkey
the
tunnel.
monkey tunnel.
Here we go down.
Going down the monkey
Alright.
tunnel.
Well, it's been good. Let's fucking go
Yeah.
get off air and do things and stuff.
Hey Rob, do the thing you do.
No, he didn't do that.
He doesn't do the thing?